Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today. This is the Bodega Cat Book Club, and we are continuing our reading on the uh, Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. And today we're going to start with chapter 22. So here we go. The Heart of a Stone Image. As a loyal Hindu wife, I do not wish to complain of my husband, but I yearn to see him turn from his materialistic views. He delights in ridiculing the pictures of saints in my meditation book. Dear brother, I have deep faith that you can help him. Will you? My eldest sister Roma gazed beseechingly at me. I was paying a short visit at her Calcutta home on Girish, Vidyaratna Lane. Her plea touched me, for she had exercised a profound spiritual influence over my early life and had lovingly tried to fill the void left in the family circle by mother's death. Beloved sister, of course I will do anything I can. I smiled, eager to lift the gloom plainly visible on her face, in contrast to her usual calm and cheerful expression. Roma and I sat a while in silent prayer for guidance. A year earlier, my sister had asked me to initiate her in Kriya Yoga, in which she was making notable progress. An inspiration seized me. Tomorrow, I said, I'm going to the temple of Kali in Dakshineswar. Please come with me and persuade your husband to accompany us. I feel that in the vibrations of that holy place, Divine Mother will touch his heart. But don't disclose our object in wanting him to go. Sister agreed hopefully. Very early the next morning, I was pleased to find that Roma and her husband were in readiness for the trip. As our hackney carriage rattled along Upper Circular Road toward Dakshineswar, my brother-in-law, Satish Chandra Bose, amused himself by deriding the worth of Guru. I noticed that Rama was quietly weeping. Sister, cheer up, I whispered. Don't give your husband the satisfaction of believing that we take his mockery seriously. The camera. I'm just going to move the camera bit in. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. All right, Mukunda, how can you admire worthless humbugs? Satish was saying. A sadhu's very appearance is repulsive. He is either as thin as a skeleton or as unholily fat as an elephant. I shook with laughter, a reaction that annoyed Satish. He retired into sullen silence. As our cab entered the temple grounds in Dakshineswar, he grinned sarcastically. This excursion, I suppose, is a scheme to reform me? As I turned away without reply, he caught my arm. Young Mr. Monk, he said, don't forget to make proper arrangements with the temple authorities to provide for our noon meal. Satish wished to spare himself any conversation with priests. I'm going to meditate now. Do not worry about your lunch, I replied sharply. Divine Mother will look after it. I don't trust Divine Mother to do a single thing for me, but I do hold you responsible for my food. Satish's tones were threatening. I proceeded alone to the portico that fronts the large temple of Kali, God in the aspect of Mother Nature. Selecting a shady spot near one of the pillars, I sat down and assumed a lotus posture. Although it was only about 7 o'clock, the morning sun would soon be oppressive. The world receded as I became devotionally entranced. My mind was concentrated on Goddess Kali. Her statue in this very temple in Dakshineswar had been the special object of adoration by the great master, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa. In answer to his anguished demands, the stone image was often taken a living form and conversed with him. Silent Mother of Stone, I prayed, thou dost become filled with life at the plea of thy beloved devotee Ramakrishna. Why dost thou not also heed the wells of this yearning son of thine? My aspiring zeal increased boundlessly, accompanied by divine peace. Yet, when 5 hours had passed, and the goddess whom I was inwardly visualizing had made no response, I felt slightly disheartened. Sometimes it is a test by God to delay the fulfillment of prayers, but he eventually appears to the persistent devotee in whatever form that he holds dear. A devout Christian sees Jesus, a Hindu beholds Krishna, or the goddess Kali, or an expanding light if his worship takes an impersonal turn. Reluctantly, I opened my eyes and saw that the temple doors were being locked by a priest in conformance with the noon hour custom. I rose from my secluded seat on the portico and stepped into the courtyard. Its stone surface was scorched by the midday sun. My bare feet were painfully burned. Divine Mother, I silently remonstrated, thou dost not come to me in vision, and now thou art hidden in the temple behind closed doors. I wanted to offer a special prayer to thee today on behalf of my brother-in-law. My inward petition was instantly acknowledged. First, a delightful cold wave descended over my back and under my feet, banishing all discomfort. Then, to my amazement, the temple became greatly magnified. Its large door slowly opened, revealing the stone figure of Goddess Kali. Gradually, the statue changed into a living room, smilingly nodding in greeting, thrilling me with joy indescribable. As if by a mystic syringe, the breath was withdrawn from my lungs. My body became very still, though not inert. An ecstatic enlargement of consciousness followed. I could see clearly for several miles over the Ganges River to my left, and beyond the temple into the entire Dakshanswar precincts. The walls of all buildings glimmered transparently. Through them, I observed people walking to and fro over distant acres. Though I was breathless and though my body remained in a strangely quiet state, I was able to move my hands and feet freely. For several minutes, I experimented in closing and opening my eyes. In either state, I saw distinctly the whole Dakshanswar panorama. Spiritual sight, X-ray light, penetrates into all matter. The divine eye is center everywhere, circumference nowhere. I realized anew, standing there in the sunny courtyard, that where man ceases to be a prodigal child of God, engrossed in the physical world, indeed dream, baseless as a bubble, he re-inherits his eternal realms. If escapism be a need of man, cramped in his narrow personality, can any other escape compare with that of omnipresence? In my sacred experience at Dakshanswar, the only extraordinary and large objects were the temple and the form of the goddess. Everything else appeared in its normal dimensions, although each was enclosed in a halo of mellow light, white, blue, and pastel rainbow hues. My body seemed to be of ethereal substance, ready to levitate. Fully conscious of my material surroundings, I was looking about me and taking a few steps without disturbing the continuity of a blissful vision. Behind the temple walls, I suddenly glimpsed my brother-in-law as he sat under the thorny branches of a sacred bell tree. I could effortlessly discern the course of his thoughts. Somewhat uplifted under the holy influence of Dakshanswar, his mind yet held unkind reflections about me. I turned directly to the gracious form of the goddess. Divine Mother, I prayed, wilt thou not spiritually change my sister's husband? A beautiful figure, hitherto silent, spoke at last. Thy wish is granted. I looked happily at Satish, as though instinctively aware that some spiritual power was at work. He rose resentfully from his seat on the ground. I saw him running behind the temple. He approached me, shaking his fist. All-embracing vision disappeared. No longer could I see the glorious goddess. The temple lost its transparency and resumed its ordinary dimensions. Again, my body sweltered under the fierce rays of the sun. I jumped into the shelter of the portico, to which Satish pursued me angrily. I looked at my watch. It was 1 o'clock. The divine vision had lasted an hour. You little fool, my brother-in-law blurted out. You have been sitting there cross-legged and cross-eyed for hours. I have gone back and forth watching you. Where is our food? Now the temple is closed. You failed to notify the authorities about us. It is too late to arrange for our lunch. The exhaustion I had felt in the goddess's presence lingered with me. I exclaimed, Divine Mother will feed us. Once and for all, Satish shouted, I would like to see your Divine Mother giving us food here without prior arrangements. His words were hardly uttered when a temple priest crossed the courtyard and joined us. Son, he addressed me, I have been observing your face serenely glowing during hours of meditation. I saw the arrival of your party this morning and felt a desire to put aside ample food for your lunch. It is against the temple rules to feed those who do not make a request beforehand, but I have made an exception for you. I thanked him and gazed straight into Satish's eyes. He flushed with emotion, lowering his gaze in silent repentance. When we were served a lavish meal, including out-of-season mangoes, I noticed that my brother-in-law's appetite was meager. He was bewildered, diving deep into the ocean of thought. On the return journey to Calcutta, Satish, with softened expression, occasionally glanced at me pleadingly, but he did not speak a single word after the moment the priest, as though an answer to Satish's challenge, had appeared to invite us to lunch. The following afternoon, I visited my sister at her home. She greeted me affectionately. Dear brother, she cried, what a miracle. Last evening, my husband wept openly before me. Beloved Devi, he said. And here's a footnote, which means goddess, literature, shining one, from Sanskrit verb root div, to shine. I am happy beyond expression that this reforming scheme of your brothers has wrought a transformation. I'm going to undo every wrong I have done to you. From tonight, we will use our large bedroom only as a place of worship. Your small meditation room shall be changed into our sleeping quarters. I am sincerely sorry that I have ridiculed your brother. For the shameful way I have been acting, I will punish myself by not talking to Mukunda until I have progressed in the spiritual path. Deeply, I will seek the Divine Mother from now on. Someday, I must surely find her. Years later, in 1936, I visited Satish in Delhi. I was overjoyed to perceive that he had developed highly self-realization and had been blessed by a vision of the Divine Mother. During my stay with him, I noticed that Satish secretly spent the greater part of each night asleep in meditation. Spent the greater part of each night in deep meditation, though he was suffering from a serious ailment and was engaged during the day at his office. The thought came to me that my brother-in-law's lifespan would not be a long one. Rhoda must have read my mind. Dear brother, she said, I am well and my husband is sick. Nevertheless, I want you to know that as a devoted Hindu wife, I am going to be the first one to die. It won't be long now before I pass on. Here's a footnote. A Hindu wife believes it is a sign of spiritual advancement if she dies before her husband, as proof of her loyal service to him, or dying in harness. Taken aback at her ominous words, I yet realized their sting of truth. I was in America when my sister died, about 18 months after her prediction. My youngest brother, Vishnu, later gave me the details. Roma and Satish were in Calcutta at the time of her death, Vishnu told me. That morning, she dressed herself in her bridal finery. Why this special costume? Satish inquired. This is my last day of service to you on earth, Roma replied. A short time later, she had a heart attack. As her son was rushing out for aid, she said, Son, do not leave me. It is no use. I shall be gone before a doctor could arrive. 10 minutes later, holding the feet of her husband in reverence, Roma consciously left her body, happily and without suffering. Satish became very reclusive after his wife's death, Vishnu continued. One day he and I were looking at a photograph of a smiling Roma. Why do you smile? Satish suddenly exclaimed, as though his wife were present. You think you were clever in arranging to go before me. I shall prove that you cannot long remain away from me. Soon I shall join you. Although at this time Satish had fully recovered from his sickness and was enjoying excellent health, He died without apparent cause shortly after this strange remark before the photograph. Thus prophetically passed both my beloved sister Roma and her husband Satish, who had been transformed and Dakshanswar from an ordinary worldly man to a silent saint.